AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts podcast. Today's conversation series episode is brought to you by thecollector.com. If you're into mind-blowing dives into ancient history, philosophy, killer art breakdowns, or even epic travel spots with a cultural twist, this is the site that's got it all. Visit thecollector.com. Stories to teach, inform, and inspire. Today on History Shorts. In the forging fires of the early American Republic, two visionary founders, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, clashed in a profound rivalry that would define the nation's enduring struggle over the nature of power and liberty. Today we speak with Jeffrey Rosen, President and CEO of the National Constitution Center, as he discusses his newest book, The Pursuit of Liberty: How Hamilton versus Jefferson Ignited the Lasting Battle Over Power in America. Through Hamilton's bold blueprint for a strong centralized government and Jefferson's fervent advocacy for decentralized agrarian ideals, Rosen reveals how their ideological battle not only shaped the Constitution's implementation, but continues to fuel contemporary debates on federal authority, individual rights, and the soul of democracy.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Jeff, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
What prompted you to research and write this book? Is this a natural extension of your previous book, or was there just a completely new, different impetus for this one?
Well, this is number two in what looks like it's going to be a trilogy, The Pursuit of Happiness, The Pursuit of Liberty, and the next book is going to be The Pursuit of Union. I was inspired to write The Pursuit of Liberty by realizing how central the debate between Hamilton and Jefferson is to all of American history. Their initial debates over national power versus states' rights, and a strong executive versus a strong judiciary, and liberal versus strict construction of the Constitution have defined all of American politics and constitutional law ever since. And then when I just put their names, Hamilton and Jefferson, into all the primary texts, it blew me away how they've been invoked by name at all the crucial turning points in American history. So I came to think of Hamilton and Jefferson like golden and silver threads woven throughout American history, and it was so exciting to trace those threads from the founding until today.
Yeah, your whole book jumps through these different time periods, and it's almost like people tend to identify themselves, politicians tend to identify themselves based on these two men over hundreds of years ago. It's like, which way do you go? Which way are you going to? I'm more of a Jeffersonian. I'm more of a Hamiltonian. Sometimes even when they are more Hamiltonian, but they say they're more Jeffersonian, there's that weird, you almost don't want to be Hamiltonian vibe going. But your book frames this Hamilton-Jefferson rivalry as igniting this lasting battle over power. What core philosophical differences or disagreements or simply aspects of their visions of liberty do you see as the most responsible for shaping these foundational tensions?
The central tension is their different views of the relationship between liberty and power. For Jefferson, any expansion in power threatens liberty, and for Hamilton, expanding power can actually secure liberty. And in particular, those competing visions come to a point in their debates over the Bank of the United States. Remember, the Constitution's ratified. Hamilton proposes a national bank as the centerpiece of his financial plan. And then the question is whether Washington should sign it, whether it's consistent with the Constitution or not. So Jefferson and Hamilton both write memos. And Jefferson says it's not constitutional because the Constitution authorizes Congress to pass all laws that are necessary and proper to achieve its ends. And because a bank isn't absolutely necessary to achieve the end of promoting the general welfare or creating taxation, then the Constitution doesn't authorize it. And Hamilton disagrees. He writes this long memo saying, as long as the end is useful or conducive or helpful, then it's perfectly consistent with the Constitution and it doesn't have to be absolutely necessary. Washington sides with Hamilton over Jefferson, and then it goes up to the Supreme Court a few years later. And John Marshall, the great Chief Justice, has a copy of Hamilton's opinion by his side because he's writing George Washington's biography and he's just gotten Washington's papers from his nephew. And he basically paraphrases Hamilton almost word for word in his famous opinion, McCulloch v. Maryland. Let the end be legitimate, then any means chosen are consistent with the Constitution. And that is the central opinion in all of Supreme Court history for determining the scope of national power. And all the major turning points since then, people have come down on different sides based on whether they're a Jeffersonian or Hamiltonian in their views of federal power. When it comes to the Missouri Compromise, which the Dred Scott case infamously strikes down, when it comes to Reconstruction, which the conservative Supreme Court again infamously strikes down during the Gilded Age, when it comes to the New Deal, which again a conservative court strikes down, all three of these examples are invoking a Jeffersonian strict construction of the necessary and proper clause. And then you fast forward to today, and our big debates is Obamacare constitutional or is the Voting Rights Act constitutional? There, the Roberts Court is disagreeing, and John Roberts sided with Hamilton and Marshall in upholding Obamacare, but the court seems to be siding with Jefferson in striking down the Voting Rights Act.
Which time period in American history do you feel that the Jeffersonian-Hamiltonian dichotomy or debate seems to have come the most to forefront or most visible and true to the original arguments made by both men?
Well, it's a great question, and it's striking that in no subsequent era are both sides totally true to the original arguments because they're always switching and adapting Hamilton and Jefferson to suit the needs of the moment. Probably the most dramatic example is during the New Deal. Franklin Roosevelt it reads this biography called Jefferson versus Hamilton, the battle for democracy in America. And he decides to reinvent the Democratic Party, which had been devoted to Jefferson and limited government, into the new party of Jefferson and democracy. And he makes Jefferson the patron saint of the New Deal administrative state. Now, this takes some chutzpah is the only word for it because, the idea of Jefferson approving this vast expansion of federal power that even Hamilton would have balked at is hard to imagine. But FDR puts Jefferson on the nickel and he builds the Jefferson Memorial and he kind of invokes Jefferson in all his campaign speeches. And he basically reinvents Jefferson as the prophet of democracy rather than limited federal power. Then Ronald Reagan says that he left the Democratic Party in 1960 because it had abandoned the principles of Jefferson and limited government, and he reinvents the Republicans as the party of the libertarian rather than the democratic Jefferson. And we're having the same debate today, where President Trump said he ran for president because Democrats were trying to tear down statues of Jefferson and the founders, and Joe Biden said he ran for president in 2020 because he heard President Trump in Charlottesville, the home of Jefferson, say that there are good people on both sides. It's the eternal debate. We're still having it. And it's remarkable how Jefferson and Hamilton define our debates throughout American history.
This battle over power also extends beyond politics and goes to economics and society. How did Hamilton's financial system and Jefferson's agrarian vision lay the groundwork for other enduring American conflicts, such as between urban industrialism and rural populism?
Great question. And it was exactly that debate that kind of defined the clash between the political parties for most of our history. In the 19th century, the Jeffersonian Democratic Republicans are the party of Jefferson's poor white farmers, and they want to expand the vote for poor white men and allow them to create an empire of liberty, as Jefferson weirdly puts it, that's going to go throughout the West, where they're going to expand slavery and also displace Native Americans, but expand the franchise for poor white men. And that vision of the Democrats as the party of white populism remains all the way up through the New Deal, where people like Woodrow Wilson and as well as Franklin Roosevelt are attacking the banks and want to curb monopolies and favor the rural farming classes. And on the other side, there's the Whigs followed by the Republicans, who are the party of the urban financiers and merchants, and eventually, in the New Deal period, the working class urban poor tends to side with the Democratic rather than the Republican Party, even though Jefferson himself thought that cities were wicked and immoral and wanted to ban all trade with them. So, this basic division, though, between agrarian versus rural and financiers versus farmers and producers is central to American politics. Many think it's really central to defining the Constitutional Convention. And that economic aspect of American politics is so important for helping to understand our constitutional debates.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Jeff, if we had this DeLorean from Back to the Future and we brought Hamilton and Jefferson to our world today, which one of these two men do you think would feel most at home, or not most, but more at home?
Well, Hamilton, when he died, remember, said, "I feel not at all at home in America.
True.
This America is not made for me." And he fears the growth of democracy, which he thinks is the main evil to be checked. So an increasingly democratic America is one that would have alarmed him. Jefferson, of course, would have been alarmed by the rise of urbanism and the merchant classes, and most of all by the vast expansion of federal power, in particular of executive power. And it's really striking that both Hamilton and Jefferson were united in their fear of a Julius Caesar-like character, an embryo Caesar, as Hamilton puts it. They both think they found a Julius Caesar in Aaron Burr. And for them, the big danger is a president who's going to subvert the separation of powers and try to install himself as a lifelong dictator. And even without getting into our current political debates, there's no question that the modern presidency has swelled in ways that both Hamilton and Jefferson would have been alarmed by ever since the Progressive era, when the president claims that he's a steward of the people, directly channeling popular will. And it is clear that both of them also would have been alarmed by the fact that Congress is no longer checking the president and has been rubber stamping the positions of presidents of the same party, and also the judiciary, which is increasingly deferential to the executive. All of this, which transcends our current political party, is a kind of unbalancing of the separation of powers in a way that Jefferson and Hamilton would be surprised by.
I just read somewhere, I'm not sure, I would have to look it up exactly what it was, but someone's trying to create an AI engine that plugs in all of our founding fathers' writings, their letters, their journals, and everything else. So that way we have this perhaps too literal interpretation of how they would view current events. By plugging in questions that deal with today's world into a database that is entirely encompassing of all of their at least known works and what they would think about the world we live in today. It's an interesting usage of AI, that's for sure.
That's fascinating. The National Constitution Center has convened a really great advisory board of scholars of diverse perspectives to advise us about the use of AI. We're thinking of also putting all the primary texts online, but we're just beginning to figure out how to present them in ways that inspire readers and users to go back to the primary text themselves. I think it's really important to see what the sources are when we try to imagine what the framers would say today, and also to highlight the differing points of view. There's no single answer to what the framers would think. Different framers had different points of view, and having an AI tool that encourages that kind of debate and exploration will be really exciting to create.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Constitution Center?
Absolutely. It's the most inspiring place. I always recite our mission statement on our podcast, We the People, which I host every week. The only institution in America chartered by Congress to increase awareness and understanding of the U.S. Constitution among the American people on a nonpartisan basis. How inspiring that Congress founded the NCC as a private nonprofit during the bicentennial of the Constitution to convene people of different perspectives for constitutional education and debate. It's an inspiring museum right on Independence Mall in Philadelphia, across from Independence Hall, with the greatest view of Independence Hall in America, where there are life-size statues of the framers, live theater for kids, exhibits on founding principles and separation of powers and Reconstruction. It's just an incredibly inspiring space that you got to visit if you're in Philly and bring your kids. And in addition, it's an amazing online education platform that has an incredible interactive constitution that I'd love listeners to check out, which bring together the top liberal and conservative scholars in America to debate every clause of the Constitution. So you can find Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Katyal with 1,000 words about what they agree the habeas corpus clause mean, and then separate statements about what they disagree about, and multiply that by 160 scholars. It's just incredibly deep and inspiring to be able to learn about areas of agreement and disagreement. And if that's not enough, I always feel like a Ginsu knife salesman at this point, because there's more. There's a Constitution 101 course online that's free, and also a version we posted with Khan Academy. There are courses for high school, middle school, and adult learners. And there's an amazing new civic toolkit for America 250, including an interactive Declaration of Independence, with America's top scholars writing about the big ideas of the Declaration: liberty, equality, government by consent. Akhil Amar has annotated the whole Declaration clause by clause. And we're going to take this on the road to partnerships with rural bookstores and libraries across America to host conversations about the American idea for 2026. So there's just so much phenomenal content online. It's all on constitutioncenter.org, and I'd love listeners to check it out.
Absolutely. You kind of stole my thunder there, because my next question was, what are you guys planning for the 250th? I mean, you touched upon it, but I assume there's a lot. It's a big program, correct?
It really is. We kind of launched it a few weeks ago here in Philly with conversations with Justice Amy Coney Barrett about her new book. We put the Civic Toolkit online. We just gave the Liberty Medal to Ron Chernow in the Hamilton musical last week, so that was really exciting. And then the launch of my book this week, The Pursuit of Liberty, will kick off a year of conversation where we're just traveling around the country talking about the American idea. It's great to tailor the conversations to what communities are interested in. So last night we were in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, at the Midtown Scholar Independent Bookstore, where Justin Driver of Yale Law School and I had a conversation about race and the founding. And Justin has a great new book on the fall of affirmative action, and we talked about what Hamilton and Jefferson would have thought about the Reconstruction Amendments. And then we're tailoring our conversations to what communities want. So we're going to talk about Reconstruction in New Orleans at a Black-owned bookstore, Native American rights in Salt Lake City. And if any listeners are hearing this and want to invite us to your communities, and you can get a big enough crowd together, then we would love to think about bringing the NCC across America and the Civic Toolkit to your communities.
All right. My last question for you, Jeff, is, I mean, you're a scholar, obviously, of the Constitution of U.S. early American history, but are there any books that stand out to you from your own life that have inspired you?
Well, I was really inspired during COVID to read the classical moral philosophy that inspired Franklin and Jefferson when they used those words about the pursuit of happiness. And what really got me going was finding Thomas Jefferson's reading list and the books of ancient moral philosophy that convinced him that happiness meant being good, not feeling good, the pursuit of virtue rather than pleasure. So some of those books, like these are Stoic philosophers, like Cicero in particular inspired Jefferson. But if I had to pick one to recommend to your listeners, I would pick Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, because they're so clear and inspiring, and they've really helped people improve their lives throughout history. So some book of classical moral philosophy, like Cicero's Tusculan Disputations or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And then among the Enlightenment moral philosophy, the thinkers who most inspired the founders included David Hume's essays, which are absolutely wonderful, or John Locke's essay concerning human understanding. But if you can just pick two, in addition to Marcus Aurelius, I think I'd put the Bible.
Interesting. Every time I think of Marcus Aurelius, I think of how interesting it is, the sheer fact that because the statues of him were, on a horse wearing a toga, they survived the purges when all the other statues of Roman emperors were being taken down because he was misunderstood as somebody else, because he himself was, the dichotomy of a man, right? He was a philosopher king, I guess, philosopher emperor.
Incredible, isn't it? Just emperor and philosopher. There's no one who's combined them in that way, and the advice is so powerful and so true.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time today. This was truly amazing. I'll make sure all the links are in. And, great job writing this book. You ran through American history in a way that I've never looked at before, and it was fresh and it felt fresh.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Love the conversation. Thank you.
Hopefully, today's episode has inspired you to seek out and learn more about the subject. For answers to questions, to leave a comment, or check out upcoming guest announcements, visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for History Shorts Podcast on Facebook and X. Stay curious, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.